Alright, you guys, I am back again making another video. Sorry, yet again, more delays. I get it. I do need to come up with more inconsistent scheduling so I can stop doing this and at least uploading around at least 2 to 3 times a week. But some of these videos, I don't know. I should just be going down. But either way, I got a good video today. As you can tell by the title of the video, there will be spoilers for those that have not actually watched the anime. Even though the anime is completed and the manga, well, the main part anyway, it's still spoilers. So keep that in mind as we begin. All right, you guys. So we're going to be discussing how powerful is Natsu. Now, I understand a lot of people really dislike Fairy Tail. I understand it does have its issues, and especially with Natsu and its scaling. Power friendship, blah, blah, blah. I don't really care. It does not discriminate from his power level, and it does not take away the fact that Fairy Tail is actually still pretty fucking good. I don't care. It's actually in one of my top 10s, which I may do a video on later. But either way, I'm not even going to delay this video any longer. I'm just going to talk about it, and we're just going to get right into it, you guys. Alright, so let's talk about Natsu's strength level, okay? Now, Natsu is a extremely powerful character just in his base form alone, which I'm going to talk over first. But Natsu, I'm going to actually compare him to two main characters at the moment, and I'll explain the ending parts of the manga and anime later. The two characters I'm going to choose are Irene and Zeref, the Black Wizard. Now, I'm going to start off with Irene just because, well, I'll explain. Point being, Irene is a very powerful wizard. She's actually part of the Alvarez Empire's Spriggan 12. In fact, she's actually seen as the strongest member, or at least in the top two. Basically, the top two members, which are Irene and August, are actually comparable in strength. They're actually stated to be actually equal to one another. She's extremely powerful, and on top of which, her main attribute is the fact that she uses high enchantment magic, and her enchantments are actually higher than most people. Most people know enchant magic from what Wendy can do, but Wendy doesn't even compare to what Irene can do. Irene actually more or less came up with the magic itself. In fact, just in her use when she first came up with it in first place, was able to take a simple wooden stick, use basic low-level enchantment magic on it, and make it even stronger than an actual steel blade, which is very impressive, at least for that time, just showing that basically she can take the durability of wood itself, and then add it on to make it stronger still. That is very impressive. But her most greatest feat, and the reason why I want to talk about Irene in the first place, is the fact that in her fight, or rather during the war arc between Fairy Tail, or rather the entire nation of Fiore versus Alvarez, she used a very powerful spell known as Universe 1. In this spell, she literally changed the entirety of the landscape of the Fiore country. Literally, basically what happened, she didn't necessarily destroy the country, nothing like that, and I understand how people feel about that. But essentially, just to have enough magic to go over the entire country of Fiore and literally rearrange everything. She did not have complete control over it, as in she couldn't necessarily arrange the country the way she fully intended, but she did it enough to get Zeref closer to his goal, quick, fast, and in a hurry. Like I said, just the fact that she had enough power to actually go over Fiore, and which is not a small country, more like actually in between mid to large country, shows just how impressive it is. And she also did that in her base form. And yet again, a lot of people wonder, what do you mean base form? She's actually seen as the queen of dragons. In fact, believe it or not, she actually became a dragon. She was the first ever dragon slayer to ever exist. A dragon actually gave her magic, or rather she created the dragon slaying magic using her high enchantment, which also speaks on her level of power. In her dragon form, like I said, just in her base form, she was able to change the entire country. But in her dragon form, she literally had enough force to basically bring in a meteor or asteroid, however you want to define it, from space, entering at terminal velocity, which just on itself, like I said, if just in her base form, very casually might I add, she was able to rearrange the entire country, putting her at that mid to large country level of power, give her the amp that comes with transforming into her dragon form, means she's no longer suppressed, and bringing forth the meteor shows that she is definitely in a higher class. But even with that power of her being in such a high level, she still is considered to be weaker than Zeref. Both her and August, like I said, are comparable, which is why I'm not really talking about August. I'm just bringing in Irene. But Zeref is still seen as stronger. He is the emperor, and he was is also the main reason why. Well, actually, he is the reason why. What's the word I'm looking for? Why Irene was actually able to even have a human form in the first place. In fact, Zeref is so powerful, he actually taught pretty much everyone in the early days. He actually taught a lot of them some of the more advanced level of magic, considering magic was extremely basic. Zeref actually trained a lot of them, including a lot of the older Spring 12 members, on how to do it. Not to mention, Zeref also, because with his immortality and his willingness to die, actually created the Book of Demons, or rather the demons from the Book of Zeref, rather. One of those being Delior, which actually, as powerful as he is, still is kind of up for debate whether or not he's as strong as the 9 demon gates. But bottom line, he created all these demons. Delior being strong enough to the point that a ice shell had to be used for over a decade just to drain most of his life force. And then you also had the 9 demon gates, one of those being silver, which doesn't really count, but you have a necromancer, someone who literally can steal souls and stuff and transport it and gain all their powers and abilities, all sorts of things. And on top of it, the leader of Tartaros, who actually built the guild in order to kill Zeref, coming up with a spell called Memento Mori, which literally erases you from existence. He puts you in a place that is not life, that is not death. You just literally, you just cease to exist. Okay, so he has powers such as that. And he created, now keep this in mind, I'm about to say, he created all of these demons for the sole purpose to kill them, and none of them are actually had the ability, which is why they wanted to activate E and D. So keep that in mind. But even as powerful as the Black Wizard Zeref is, and as amazing as some of the stuff that he's able to do, he still is not as strong as Natsu. Actually, when they first fought, like their first official fight outside of Timber Island, literally Natsu with his Blaze Dragon Chemo was actually going to defeat Zeref, but had to pull him out because it was going to kill him too. But then Zeref gets an even bigger boost when he becomes the White Wizard Zeref. This is a Zeref that takes place basically when he achieves the Fairy Heart from the first Guild Master Mavis, and takes the power of the Neo Eclipse, which is basically what happened when people constantly kept using the Eclipse Scan and all that stuff. It's a giant mass of time and space magic that is basically limitless. It is limitless time and space magic. This White Wizard Zeref was so powerful to the point when he combined those two together and became White Wizards that basically his whole intention when he was going to just wipe out the entire timeline, like fair to the timeline that we all know from the beginning. He was just going to wipe the whole thing out and literally create a brand new timeline. Now, granted, I know that's kind of hard to quantify, but it's still just the fact that he has enough power to do it in the first place. It's just magnificent. And even still, a base Natsu was still able to throw hands with him completely. And they were actually even in power. Actually, Natsu was actually stronger, considering even though he fought White Wizard Zeref in his base form, he was still able to defeat him. Now, the anime shows Natsu using Dragon Force, but he doesn't. He doesn't. In the manga, he clearly shows that he's just in base form. So base Natsu is able to defeat the White Wizard Zeref. Okay, keep that in mind. But there's one character I'm not talking about, and that is Acnologia. Now, Acnologia is already seen as a stronger being than Black Wizard Zeref. In fact, leaves above. Zeref is absolutely terrified of Acnologia. That's how much powerful he is. But then when Natsu defeats him, Acnologia actually gets pushed into the Neo Eclipse, which is, like I said, that's that infinite amount of time and space magic. He literally goes in and he eats so much of it that he ascends to a whole new level where basically his power could not even be contained. It was in his own body. So he actually had to separate himself into his dragon form and his human form, each of them being massively stronger than they used to be because he ate so much magic. Now, Natsu ended up fighting off against this Acnologia. And yes, it did take the combined effort of all 7 of them. But you have to remember, at this point in the series, Natsu literally had just got done fighting off against White Wizard Zeref in his base form. His arm was completely damaged. He has taken a lot of damage from his fight with Zeref. So he's basically extremely damaged and heavily fatigued at this point. After the fight with White Wizard Zeref, he was literally just struggling just to walk. Okay, so but he has to go from that and face an even amped up Agnologia at that point on. So this is a heavily fatigued Natsu, and he was still one of the only Dragon Slayers that were actually able to hold his own while they were all frozen. So keep that in mind. The next step, of course, is to go over Natsu's speed. And the best starting point that I think is Natsu's fight in the Grand Magic Games against his fight with Sting. In his fight with Sting, Sting actually was able to use both a laser and his holy ray, which even Urza commented on saying, is that light? You know what I'm saying? So literally, Natsu was actually fighting against someone that was able to use light-based attacks, putting him at that at least light speed attack. And yet again, this is still a base Natsu, and that same Sting was actually still fodder compared to Natsu's speed and power. The next one that I can actually compare Natsu's speed to is actually a being by the name of, I can never really say her name. I want to call it Demaria. Like, I never really get it right. But Demaria is a very powerful being amongst the Spring 12 and the Warlock who actually possesses magic similar to Mirror Jane, known as Takeover. She actually possesses the power of the Chrono Soul, or sorry, the Gods. It's really called God Takeover base, but it's Chrono Soul, the being of time, the Titan of time, God of time, depending on which story. And even in that, even with her ability to literally freeze time or put everyone in a dimension where time is completely frozen, Natsu was still able to win and completely fodderize her yet again in his base form. Now, granted, I say base form, but technically you can make the argument he was kind of irritating. He was kind of divulging into that demon side, but it was without a shadow of doubt more on the lines of a baseline form than his actual true forms that are coming later. Alright, so by now, you probably all keep saying, why does he keep bringing up base form? Well, what that goes into is the fact that Natsu actually has two other forms that he has used throughout the series. That each one of his forms actually gives him a utterly fucking ridiculous power boost. Like every time he uses it, it always brings up to a whole new level. The first one I'm going to bring up is his Lightning Flame Dragon mode. This is the mode that Natsu managed to attain during the Tenro Island arc, where Loxus realized he couldn't defeat Hades and gave Natsu all of his magic power. Giving Natsu eating all of Loxus's lightning gave him the Lightning Flame Dragon mode. Now, this mode was so powerful. It actually took Natsu from being complete fodder to Hades, where he was basically easily able to fondle both him, Urza, Wendy, Loxus, Gray, all of them combined, to Natsu soloing him by himself. At least for the most part. He was able to defeat a suppressed Hades, who of course had the Devil Eye and the Grimoire Heart. But the fact that it took him to that level in the first place gave him one hell of a significant power boost. The next one I'm going to talk about is the Dragon Force that got introduced during the Tower of Heaven arc, where basically Jalal got introduced, and it was actually the first time Dragon Force did get introduced, where it did basically the same thing as the Lightning Flame Dragon mode, set on an even larger scale, to put Natsu being able to get fodderized by Jalal to completely overpowering him in every single aspect, both speed and power, both. It actually allowed him to completely fodderize him with little to no difficulty. Then you also had him later use it when he ate some of Jalal's magic, and actually managed to use the Dragon Force to literally escape from Master Zero's Genesis Zero, which basically is a dimension that's trapped with lost souls stuff, and Natsu just broke out of it and continued to fight Zero and managed to beat him. The third, and actually one of the last times that we see it, is in his fight against Mark Gear after Gray takes more of the brunt of Memento Mori. Natsu was still activated Dragon Force and was actually able to completely finalize even Mark Gear. Even though Mark Gear, he did survive, but that's only because Natsu ran out of magic. So, with all of this being shown, you're probably asking, well, damn, he's more powerful than they thought, and you will be right to assume that. Just based off of basic scaling, just using him, comparing him to Irene and Zeref and Agnologi, will easily put him at literally at bare minimum large country level. Though personally, he's more in that upwards of continental to possibly multi-continental, depending on how well this new stuff is going to go, considering, like I said, the new stuff that's coming out, Fairy Tail 100 Year Quest, Natsu actually does have another form that he might actually manage to attain just from that he got from eating igneous flame. But that is a whole nother video that I'll have to bring up later. But like I said, I'll easily put Natsu in that large country to most likely up there in continental, considering the difference between them is not that great in the first place. But it would definitely put Natsu in that range of power. Also giving him, just by you comparing him to both Sting, giving him the fact that he's light speed, or at the very least can move at light speed, actually faster, considering he later on is able to blitz that same rogue who can unleash those attacks and move at those speeds, putting him at faster than light. And then of course he gets much stronger than he was during the Grand Magic games. So put in more in the lines of like massively faster than light. So yeah. So Natsu is more large country to possibly continental level, and on top of mass, you know what I'm saying, into that FTL levels of speed. He is not to be underestimated by any means. Alright guys, that is it for this video. I will be doing more Fairy Tail stuff in the future. I want to get into also Black Clover and stuff, but like I said, I'll work on that later. Point being is, like I said, I really hope that you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe if you want more. Also comment down below if there's some things that I missed, or if you disagree with it. I'm happy to kindly debate people in the comment section. So just be on the lookout for my new content that will be coming out soon. And until next time, you guys, I'll see you. Peace.